Okie dokie. So, welcome everybody to our first Sunday Styles from We Love Craft Beer and Beer Education. Thanks for joining in and being part of it. We've got a few, what will be hopefully one of our regular guests. So, Simon Skidmore, who is one of the We Love Craft Beer members, and he is studying his BJCP. So he's going to be part of this. We've got a special guest today, Mike Clark from Sauce Brewing in Marrickville, Sydney. Hey, Mike. And then we've got some of our regular members. We've got Chris Nichols and Nathan. Surname, Nath? Light. That's right. Okay, so we've got
Damien.
a couple of others joining in. So welcome for those people who are joining in. We're only just starting now, so you haven't missed anything. It was just the introductions, but yeah. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a run through. I created a document which I shared in the group. It's a little bit tricky to get all the information in one place, unfortunately. But I did upload a PDF file there about the style, which will be available afterwards. So can you see that now on my screen when I flick to that? No. Okay.
That's all right, because I've got it on my screen.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, that's okay. I'll just have a quick run through it anyway. So the style that we're looking at today, and for this session and all future sessions, we'll be using the BJCP guidelines because, just because there's only two sets of guidelines or two official sets of guidelines. The BJCP, which is the beer judge certification program, which is basically around home brewing in the States, and then there's also the Beer Association, which is the American Beer Association set of guidelines, we'll be using the BJCP guidelines. So a little bit of history about the style. It's relatively new in terms of beer, maybe not so much in craft beer. But the style first emerged in 2003 with a beer called Heady Topper, which was brewed by the Alchemist Brewery in Vermont. And that area of the United States is called New England. It's the Northeast United States. And so that's where, I guess, the beer or the style first emerged. It's taken some time for the guidelines and the rest of the, I guess, establishment to catch up, but the style is now recognised as of December 2021, so just last month. They have recognised it and updated it into the most recent guidelines, and the style is called 21C, which is a hazy IPA. Just for the record, if you use the Brewers Association guidelines, they actually have 4 different categories, so it's a little bit more complicated, but they call them juicy or hazy pale ale, juicy or hazy strong pale ale, juicy or hazy IPA, or juicy or hazy imperial or double IPA. So that's a mouthful, but essentially it follows the same sort of guidelines as pale ale, IPA, double IPA, just with a prefix, which is juicy or hazy. Now, a couple of things we've been sort of talking about and sort of encouraging people to do is go out and pick up their local, beer from their local brewery or their independent bottle shop. We always encourage you to buy fresh and buy as local and direct as possible. But in Australia, I guess probably some of the key breweries that are renowned for this style, and in fact, if you look at Untapped, which is probably a reasonable reference, is the top 5 breweries for this style are Banks, Deeds, Mountain Culture, Dainton, and coming in at number 5 is Sauce. So congratulations on that, Mike. That's open to comment, Mike. That's where you jump in and say. Oh, what?
Number one.
Have you lost me that whole time?
Are you on mute?
Microphone.
You're kidding.
Yeah, sorry. I muted it. A helicopter went over, so I muted myself.
Sorry, I thought you were saying I was on mute the whole time, and I'm like, really? I'm not repeating all of that.
No, I was on mute. Sorry, no.
Okay.
A helicopter went over. Down the button. Damien, also one of our senior brewers, just jumped on as well while you were talking, Nigel. So he's the guy there in the Sauce jumper.
Hey, Damien.
So one of the guys responsible for us being in the top four. That's really good. I didn't even realise that, Nigel. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I guess we might just start with a little bit of background on, I guess, maybe Sauce the brewery. And in the prequel, we were just talking about one of your, I guess, iconic beers in this range, which is called Bubble and Squeak.
Squeak, yeah, that's actually what I'm drinking now. Sort of see the can there.
Yep.
No, so am I.
So tell us about that. Tell us about that, how that style came about.
Well, I was also going to say, when you say make sure you get it fresh from the brewery, I think Damien and I maybe may have the unfair advantage there. But style, look, I guess it's started sort of making noise around 2016 is when we started sort of seeing it, pop up in articles and things from the US. Very few breweries in Australia were actually doing it at the time. Around about the time we launched. We launched as Gypsies late 2016 and opened our brewery late 2017. And in the middle of 2017, we actually started experimenting with New England IPAs with the style. And we actually brewed one for Gabs of that year, so sort of in May, June 2017. And those pilot beers at that point were basically my homebrew kit at home.
Yep.
And so what I did was I scrounged around the freezer trying to find all of the hops that might fit the bill, the juiciest, fruitiest, kind of heavy hitting hops, and pulled out 4 or 5. And it was all the leftover hops, open bags that I'd had there for a week or so, and just threw them all in together. And that's where the name Bubble and Squeak comes from. Because those of an English background or maybe, a bit more older Aussies would know that Bubble and Squeak is basically just leftovers all chucked in together and mixed up and fried up the day after.
Yep.
So that's where the name comes from.
Nice. And so at the time, it was an emerging style. Experimentation's a big part of craft beer. How do you look into a style and go, okay, like, this is something that we've heard of, or this is something that we're going to do, we're going to run with this, we're going to try it? Is it by the seat of your pants stuff?
Yep. Look, yes and no. Certainly the first couple of batches, if it's something that hasn't been done before or we haven't tried before, if it's a new technique, obviously we're learning as we're going. You can research as much as you want, but it's very hard to know what's going to happen on your brew kit until you actually do it. So there's certainly some experimentation there, especially with the hazy, juicy style. It can be a very challenging style to brew. It's really easy to get it wrong, and it either comes out, clear or too bitter, or it just doesn't taste good, not juicy enough, those sorts of things. So it does require quite a bit of practice to get that style right. But coming back to your question about new stuff, is it by the seat of the pants? Yeah, sometimes. Especially, the advantage of having the tap room in the brewery is we can do pilot batches and small things, and try 2 kegs of something and go a little bit crazy, and see what comes out. And if it doesn't work, there's no great loss. And but most of the time, they're good beers. You put them on the bar, you get some feedback from the customers, and see how well received they are. We'll tweak them a little bit to sort of get them to where we want them, and then scale them up once we're happy.
Nice. And Damien, like for you as a brewer, do you, when a new style comes out, do you go looking, or do you go trying? Do you go researching? What's the process to go, I've heard about this new cold IPA thing or whatever. What do you do when you hear about a new style?
There's a lot of research. Trying a lot of everyone else's interpretation of the style, but also online research into how other brewers are doing it to achieve the result. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of drinking of other beers to find out working and what isn't.
Research.
Yeah. Yeah, research.
Yeah. And so is there like is there a secret brewers club where all the brewers get on and share information and, you know, tell each other what they're doing and share recipes and stuff like that, or is that
there's what's it called? It's a US one, I think, but it's kind of a worldwide thing. Brewers.
Pro Brewer is probably the one.
Pro Brewer. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Pro Brewer. Yeah, they got a lot of threads you can get onto if you just search on their threads and get onto it.
Nice.
Find out a lot of information. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll chuck it over to Simon. Simon, you're a bit of a home brewer. Most brewers probably come from home brewing background anyway, but for you, not working in a commercial brewery and you know, hearing about a style, how do you go about finding out, you know, how to brew this style of beer, what ingredients to use, and, you know, the process for it? What's the process for a home brewer?
Yeah, for me, so I look at recipes, see what other people are doing. A good source at the moment for things like that is, I think Black Hops has got all their recipes on Brewer's Friends. So for a home brewer, that's a great resource to go, oh, how do they do that? What's in that? Putting breweries together, most brewers are pretty good, I find. Like, I've contacted people like all sorts of people like Black Hops and Dayton, and I've said, oh, look, I really love this beer. I really love what you're doing. I just don't know much about this ingredient, this process. Can you just give me some tips? And usually they're pretty good. They're pretty helpful. They come, they let you know what you want. It sounds like I started off with Brewsmith. I think I use Brewfather at the moment. But same thing, it's just a software that people put in, plug in recipes, gives you a bit of an idea of how they're going to turn out bitterness-wise and all the other parameters we look at. And then you get all the info you can. I read a lot and get all the info I can from various podcasts. And then you experiment. You have a go. You design something yourself and see how it turns out.
Yeah, nice. So it's not like KFC with the 21 secret herbs and recipes. Like, nobody's really hanging on to their own secret sauce, or so what if Nathan contacted if Simon contacted you, Damien or Mike, with what's the ingredients in your bubble and squeak, would you let him know, or is there a bit of secrecy around some of the stuff that you do?
It's a bit of both. So, you know, we don't really hide the hops we use or the malt we use or anything else like that. Like, that's, you know, anyone with a decent nose will figure that out. So that's really that big a secret. We don't give the exact recipe. We won't say we use this many grams of that and this many percentage of that sort of thing, because we don't want exact copies out there. But yeah, we're more than happy to say, you know, what malts are in there, what hops are in there. You know, what are the main things you want to do process-wise to get it the way you need it to turn out. You know, when do you add them, that sort of thing. So, you know, we're reasonably open with that sort of stuff without giving away, you know, the actual IP.
Sure. Okay, so we might start thinking about. I know everybody's having a little bit of a sip. I haven't had one yet, so I want to accelerate into that part of it pretty quick. I'll just quickly touch off on a couple of things. So. Just a couple of real general ones with recommended serving temperature for this style of beer. Do you have a particular one? I don't think you actually put them on your cans. Some people put them on the cans, but for that's coming in about 6%. I reckon probably about 6 degrees is about the mark for something like that. Would it be, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So most of our, in fact, all of our taps, because they're all the same system at the bar, they're pouring at 4 degrees. But yeah, look, this sort of beer, it will open up a little bit more as it warms up to that sort of 6-ish mark. You know, you get a bit more aroma out of it, a bit more flavour. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So often people ask about the correct temperatures, and I think one of the easiest way to remember is if you go pretty close to the ABV, you won't be too far off. So, you know, 5 degrees, 5 ABV, serve it at 5, 10, serve it at 10. You're not going to be a long way off if you do that.
Yeah, it's not a bad guide, unless you're talking, you know, all your your macro lagers and things like that, where the colder the better, because you don't actually want to taste what's in there.
Well, yeah, most of them are lowish alcohol anyway, so but the colder the better with some of those. And the other thing is the glassware. Now, in the shot that I've used and the ones in the past, generally we'd recommend something like this, which is a Canon or a Spegelau IPA glass. But certainly there's a wide variety of, well done, a wide variety of versions of that as well. And you could probably equally as put it in a pint glass or a shaker glass or something like that. You definitely want something with a reasonable rim so you can get your nose in it and enjoy all the hops. Yeah, like a balloon glass. Yep. So anything that's got a pretty decent size opening on the top, definitely not a flute glass or a Pilsner glass or a wheat glass. You want to have something that you can really get your nose into.
Opens the palate up more as well.
For sure.
The wider glass.
So while I pour that, Adrian, thanks for joining in, mate. How are you going?
Thank you. Yeah, good, thanks.
I'm
looking forward to this.
Good stuff. I'm going to pour myself one of these. It's, as everybody knows, Mountain Culture and New England IPA is my two top things in the world. So no, that's a piss take. So I'm trying to appease all the fanboys and New England IPA people.
Oh, you are.
So I'm doing my best here. But why don't we have a whip around and see what everyone's drinking? Adrian, what are you on?
I've got the Dayton Loop de Loop Max.
Nice.
Hops NEIPA. So it's very nice.
What ABV is that?
This one was it? It was 6.5.
Right.
Yeah.
Nathan, what are you on?
I've got a Sunday Road Moon Rocks Hazy IPA at 6.6 ABV.
Nice.
It's probably rare that I don't have. It's probably rare I don't have a Mountain Culture NEIPA in the fridge, to be fair. But this week, this week I ran out. It's been a couple of weeks since I've done that.
Okay, Mike and Damien both on the sauce, literally.
Yeah.
Bubble and squeak.
Sauce.
And what's that?
This one, bro.
Oh, that's the new one. Yeah.
Third dose. Mr. Shot.
Give us a plug. What's in that? Give us a plug.
Halfway through. Go. What happened? Right.
It's got a small amount of fries.
Yeah, there's some microchips in there.
Nice.
Oh yeah. We made sure that's the G5. It's a phone thing.
5G, yeah, 5G ready. So so most of you will probably know last year we come out with a couple of beer inoculation. So we had inoculation. First dose was a single hop Simcoe West Coast IPA, and second dose was a single hop East Coast IPA. And then, of course, with the big push now being on the booster shots, we kind of had to bring out a booster. So this one's we're mixing and matching. We're changing our dose this time. So we've got Simcoe and Idaho 7, and it's a double. So it's a double hazy, this one. Big, thick, juicy, mountain culture-ish hazy IPA.
It'll be Nigel's firm favourite from now on.
Yeah. I'm running out the door to get it now.
Running down to the shop as we speak.
Yeah. What are you on, Chris?
I'm on this little number, actually, and it's described as a super juicy IPA, 6.5 ABV, 24 IBUs, and it's pretty nice, actually, except it's a bit dry on the tongue. I suppose that as it warms up, it might improve, but it's a little bit cold at the moment. But nice hazy.
Yeah, and Simon's actually on his own homebrew. So what hops is in that, mate?
Yeah, so 3 hops. It's my own NEIPA, Eclipse, Nelson Sauvin, and Sabro.
Nice. All right. So Simon, I might pass
So,
over to you.
how do you go on Sabro? Because that's something you don't want to go too hard on.
Yeah, look, yeah, I know. It's come out all right actually, because you get the citrus, stone fruit, and a bit of that coconut. I do think it's a bit strong, the Sabro. It's stronger than the other things.
Yeah,
but it was a bit like, I had a look in the freezer and I went, okay, here we go. This is what we've got. This is what we're working with.
That's a weird thing with Sabro, because again, I sound like I'm not a fan of anything, but I'm not a fan of Sabro when it's mixed. But I had one where it was a single hop Sabro, and to me, it actually tastes better by itself than it did in a mix. I don't know whether that was a volume or a level or whatever, but I'm not big on that coconut flavour, but it actually didn't seem so dominant when it was just sitting by itself, which doesn't make any sense, really.
It's a very interesting hop, and I reckon it probably changed a little bit batch to batch. But so the early Sabro we used 3 years ago was pure coconut. It just tasted like coconut. That's all it did. But I think some of the more recent crops, it's a little bit more subtle. It's a lot more citrusy, and it's not so coconut dominant. So definitely a little bit more palatable and not so in your face most recently.
Nice. All right. Well, I might hand over to Simon. Simon, do you want to walk us through a little bit of the style guidelines for this style, 21C, Hazy IPA? And we might just do a bit of that sort of aroma, appearance, flavour, mouthfeel type thing. And, we'll just go around and go, okay, what do you get out of the beer you're drinking? Because we're all pretty well, not everybody's drinking different beers, but we are drinking different beers. All of these are going to fall within the style, but we'll get something different out of all of them. So anyway, I'll leave you to Simon to talk about the style.
Yeah, thanks. Actually, one more question I had for Mike. You mentioned fresh is best, and yeah, we've seen that homebrew. You realise that people try to bottle these NEIPAs and they look purple and what happened to my beer? What happened? But there's a point where it's too fresh, isn't there? Like you get this kind of hop burn really early on that dies off. I don't know. When would you say, like a month or something is probably ideal? A month from packaging, or what? What would you say?
Two-part answer. So look, even hop burn aside, I think this style really comes into its own at this 3-ish week mark. So initially it can be a little bit harsh. There's probably a little bit of bitterness there that mellows out after a couple of weeks. And they really do come into their own around that 3-week mark. Hop burn is a separate issue that's sort of come about in the last couple of years, really just from people going probably too hard on the proteins that remain in the beer and too hard on the hops. And it is a very challenging style to make. So, we're all striving to try and get these hazy, opaque beers that, even something like this, the purist would look at and go, oh, that's not hazy enough. It's not a real one, blah, blah, blah. Whereas actually, if you read the style guideline, it should be hazy, but not milky. And it's very easy to push it a little bit too far. One of the ways to keep that haze in the beer is to increase the amount of proteins that stay in solution. But the problem is certain compounds within the hops will attach themselves to those proteins, and it's a really, really harsh burning bitterness that's actually not very pleasant. Look, in small doses it does fade out pretty quick. But you can go too hard and it will be there for many, many months, and not an enjoyable beer at all. So that's something that we strive to avoid as well. We'll probably err a little bit on the cautious side these days. We've had a couple where we just, geez, that was pretty bad. We shouldn't have done that. And so we probably err a little bit more on the cautious side these days. Better to have it hazy but not milky than going the other way and just having it burn in the back of your throat as you're trying to drink it. So
Yeah, it's a killer. It's a killer for the style, I find, because there's a lot of hazies out there, and I don't know. I find it's more the low alcohol hazies I pick up, and I really sort of get this harsh hop burn at the back of my throat. Those sort of session NEIPAs that people are putting out, I don't know why, but it's just been my experience, what I've noted.
I think they're probably a bit dry. They're a bit drier. There's less there to kind of counteract the flavour as well. So.
Yeah, everybody was raving about, Super Trooper and what a fantastic, beer it is, but it burns like crazy at the back of my throat. I don't know about anybody else, but I hated it actually. And I posted that I really didn't like it. I gave it 6 out of 10 or something. I just about got lynched. But I think that's just a mistake in beer. Surely you can't get away with things like that.
Yeah, it's not desirable. And look, some people are more susceptible to it than others. So I'm pretty intolerant to it. I'll pick it up in reasonably small doses. Other people hardly notice it or think it's great. So everybody's palate's different. Some of us definitely pick up things more than others. Some other people just wouldn't taste it at all. Lucky them. But yeah.
All right, Simon, do you want to run us through some of the style guidelines and some of the things we'd be looking for in a beer like this?
Well, let's do this. Let's have a look. Grab your beers. Have you got a beer there? Everyone's got a beer in a glass, or you got it. Great. So have a look at it. Hold it up to the light. If you've got a little torch, you can shine them through to have a look. What does it look like? What's the appearance? Is it hazy? Is it opaque? What colour is it? Is it yellow? Is it straw? Dark yellow? What's the head look like? Is it, well, it's probably going to be a white head on all these bins. Does it hang around for a long time? Does it look like tight bubbles? Does it look loose? Or, having a look at that, I'll just read some of these things from the guideline while you have a look at your beer and see if it fits. So I've got colour ranging from straw to light amber, which sounds quite dark to me actually, but I think in the marketplace, lighter coloured hazies are more in vogue, but it can go to light amber and still be fitting in the style. Yep. Sometimes with an orange hue. Hazy, often opaque with clarity, should not be cloudy or murky. Have you had those hazies that are really like cloudy? You look like pond water almost. You pour them out, and some of them have got little chunks of stuff. Should not be like that. I don't know. It's just a real turn off for me. Like hazy is okay, but murky, it just, I don't know. I don't want to drink it. It doesn't. Yeah. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Should you be encountering the sediment at the bottom of the hazy?
I'll throw that over to Mike and the guys from Sauce. I don't think so, but I've had, especially these dessert type hazy beers, when they throw lactose and the kitchen sink and all these, these sort of things, these custard trifle beers that you get. They're the ones that I've found all the little lumps in them. I don't know why, but you guys can maybe inform us a bit more on that. What's going on in those ones?
Yeah, look, you definitely don't want lumps. Look, a little bit of sediment is not unusual, especially in an unfiltered, beer like this. But I'm talking about a little bit. You definitely don't want chunks, and you definitely don't want, as you say, you don't want it to be murky like river water. A little bit of sedimentation can happen in the can, even in other styles as well. But it's probably more prevalent in this style because, you're trying to get this extra haze in solution, and some of it does over time drop out. You think of the Cooper's Pale Ales of old, roll the bottle before you pour it sort of thing. Sometimes that can be quite appropriate with the style. But yeah, you definitely don't want those big floaties in there because it's just, well, one, it doesn't look good, and two, if you're drinking that at the end, it's not very nice to drink either.
Interestingly, just on this, I'll put my style Nazi hat on. And so from the comment section, heavy examples suggestive of milkshakes, creamsicles, fruit smoothies are outside this style. IPA should always be drinkable. Haziness comes from dry hopping, not suspended yeast, starch haze, or other techniques. A hazy shine is desirable, not a cloudy, murky mess. And that's from the guidelines. So, yeah, if you got any of that in your beer, it generally shouldn't be termed. It's either well, it could be either considered a fault or it's not that style of beer. So, like, if it's an oat cream IPA, it's not a New England IPA, and therefore the addition of lactose takes it out of being a New England IPA. So
that becomes a milkshake IPA. But it's interesting, isn't it? The style guidelines say it shouldn't be this really super cloudy, murky mess, and yet they're the ones that are commanding the highest prices and the highest hype in the market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, we can, I won't go down a rabbit hole with the style guidelines versus brewing, like what brewers brew as opposed to what the style guidelines are, because it is a rabbit hole. But the thing that I'd like to, I guess, question in terms of the marketplace and probably, Mike, from the tap room, you'd get a bit of an idea of this is, we've all seen the meme which goes from lager drinkers to IPAs to New England IPA to what's the barley wine, and then back to lagers, right?
Lager, yeah.
As man begins to stand up, they end up, as they go through this process, they end up going from lagers back to lagers. Would you say, in terms of the person that walks in the door and drinks, and I'm not specifically talking about craft beer drinkers, because I know you get a pretty general group of people through there, the people that drink New England IPAs, are they people, in general, big generalization, are they people who are really perhaps not traditional beer drinkers? And what I mean there is, we all know, like, if you go to a West Coast IPA, it's bitter. A lot of people don't like bitterness. Especially women don't like it on their palate. It's the bitterness, so they go for softer drinks. And I'm wondering, like, is the New England IPA the sort of soft drink version of a beer that makes it more palatable to people?
A little bit, yeah. Look, it definitely, we do get people, as you say, we've got a real broad mix of people coming into the tap room, from craft beer nerds to just locals to, the neighbours kind of thing. And yeah, look, a good example is our next door neighbour. Typical middle-aged guy, doesn't really drink beer, but Bubble and Squeak's his favourite beer.
Right.
So yeah, you're right. That lack of bitterness that has brought in, I think, it's opened people's minds to what beer could be. It doesn't have to be this horrible bitter thing that doesn't appeal to a lot of people. And what we've found now that hazy pales are sort of, it's kind of the standard strength version of a New England IPA. That's now our biggest selling beer in the tap room and wholesale as well. That's most popular beer. That's the one, yeah. So the Caribbean Fog. So in the tap room, used to be our two biggest selling beers were the Pale Ale and the Lager, and now it's the Hazy Pale and the Lager. So it's cannibalized the Pale Ale a little bit. But as you say, Lagers just keeps plugging along. The newest addition to our core range is our standard premium lager.
Yeah.
And yes, second most popular beer in the tap room, because you get a lot of people coming in who just want beer. They don't need to have a hop explosion. They just want a beer in a nice environment in the brewery.
Yeah. All right. Sorry for the intrusion, Simon. You want to take us back to the style guidelines, and maybe we go around and have a talk about what they get out of each beer?
Sure. So have a look at this. Had a look at. Yeah, I think we've talked about appearance. Let's have a look at aroma. So you've got your glasses there. You've got your fancy tulip glasses or whatever you call them. You can even put your hand on the top and swirl it around a bit to try and get some of those volatiles out, and then give it a little sniff. And what do you smell?
Pineapple juice. That's what I get in every New England IPA. It's like drinking Golden Circle pineapple juice out of the can.
I'm getting coconut.
It's weird because I'm actually quite sensitive to pineapple juice. Like, I used to drink a lot of it as a kid, and I don't know if anybody else gets it. When you drink pineapple juice, it's sort of, you get the little sting on the side of your tongue.
Yep.
So I get that. I pretty much get that when I drink a NEIPA too as well. I get that sort of little, it's not a burn, it's a sting. It's like a little, I don't know, like ice sort of cold on the side of your tongue. And It doesn't matter how much I try, every New England IPA smells like pineapple juice to me.
Yeah, right.
That means we've achieved what we're trying to do, Nigel.
Get inside my head.
No, make it taste like pineapple juice.
Were you in? Actually, I have to say, after all the doubting and whatever, this is actually pretty tasty. It's pretty good. Tastes like pineapple juice, but it's pretty good pineapple juice.
Tasty pineapple juice.
Very
alcohol.
So is it a strong aroma that you're smelling? Would you say it's weak, medium, strong? In the guidelines, it said it should have an intense hop aroma. Like, these are the beers that maybe it's been sitting there a while and a lot of this stuff's dissipated, but you know that experience when you open a can of a hazy IPA and you can smell it and it fills, that's what you want. You want it to fill the room. And you notice it's different to like a West Coast IPA or a traditional IPA, whatever we call them these days. The aromas, you want a stone fruit, tropical fruit, citrus, or other fruity qualities. But you don't want that West Coast smell, the resiny, big, thick hydrocarbon smell. You don't want that in these ones. These should be more the fruity, the citrus, stone fruit type stuff. So is that what we're getting?
Yeah, well, I'm getting stone fruit and tropical. I mean, it's interesting you say about the pineapple. Once you said that, I kind of couldn't turn that off. But
it's the 5G in the booster shot that they give you.
I always smell mango. The very first thing I smell, and like you, someone will say, "Oh, but there's pineapple," and oh yeah, I can smell that now.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I always pick up on the mango in NEIPAs.
Yeah, tropical stone fruit.
Yeah.
And some hops do throw up something that's a bit mango-like.
Yep.
I think Citra in
Because
particular.
The other thing is it changes as it warms up too.
Yeah, definitely.
What are you getting, Nathan? What are you getting out of yours?
I'll admit I cheated and I had one of the 4-pack earlier in the week, so I prepared myself for this. But no, like you said early on, like when you open the can and I got a big waft of citrusy, tropical kind of stuff. Again, I'm now mostly getting sort of stone fruit and like you said, getting a lot of pineapple after you'd said pineapple. Maybe that's the fact that this is probably 40 minutes. This is probably the longest half of beers ever lasted in my glass, to be fair. Yeah. And like I said, I'm not a big fan of pineapple, to be fair. But these still taste good to me, you know what I mean? Pineapple, I won't drink a glass of pineapple juice, but I'll drink a beer that looks like a pineapple juice. Quite
Yeah.
From an aroma point of view, initially I got that really citrusy, tropically sort of thing, and now it's more stone fruit type.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it will change as it warms up because there's all these little compounds inside here and they're volatile. That's why they pop out of the glass and they're all coming off at different times, different temperatures. So we're smelling it. So as it warms up, it will change. We'll probably going to get even more aroma as it warms up, assuming everything's not dissipated. But yeah, you're quite likely to smell different things, especially malt. Malt's really hard to pick up when beers are really cold, but malt aroma later on when it warms up, you start to appreciate that a bit more.
Interestingly, under the mouth.
So you mentioned the.
Sorry, go on.
You go.
I was going to say, interesting, under the mouthfeel, it says beer should not be creamy or viscous mouthfeel. Again, with the pineapple juice, that sort of text, I always get a creamy sort of mouthfeel with it. And, to me, it seems like most of the New England IPAs I have that sort of creamy mouthfeel. Am I the only one that gets that?
I'm not getting it from mine. I don't get creamy from mine. Mine's kind of softish, but it's not creamy. It's more. It's crisper than cream.
Yeah. Okay. Must be my soft palate, sensitive palate.
No, it varies. It varies, Nigel.
Yeah.
Nigel, it varies. Sometimes they are.
I'll try this one because this is being a pale ale as opposed to an IPA. It's a little bit lower. It's only 4.6. So
I think with the style guidelines, this idea of creamy probably brings you more to that oat cream type, which is a different style, right? These oat, what do they call them? Oat cream IPAs. So there's more heavy use of things like oats and lactose and things like that, which really sort of bump up the mouthfeel and give this creaminess to it. My guess is that comment in the hazy is meant to set this style apart from that style. That's my guess. But it's not going to be dry and crisp like a lager. There is a certain amount of creaminess to the style, isn't there? Because that's what's going into these things.
Yeah. There's higher residual sugars as well. So, your finishing gravity is a bit higher in these beers than, say, West Coast of the same strength. Yeah. So you have a little bit of a sweetness there to it. We tend to carbonate them a little bit lower than a regular IPA or pale ale as well. So that helps with that sort of smooth mouthfeel. Cuts down some of that carbonic bite, whereas it's not as highly carbonated.
Like this one.
Is that why it doesn't hold the head? Is that why the head sort of dissipates rather quickly on an NEIPA?
Yeah, partly that. Damien, would you say what else?
Well, from the hops, they add a lot to head retention. It ruins head retention, basically, because there's so many oils, there's so many hops added in the dry hops. So, head retention's kind of screwed.
Is that right? Yeah, that's an interesting point for me, because I've always sort of hop oil as a phone positive thing, but you were saying is there too much of it and it doesn't help the head retention?
That's my understanding. You got high protein, which should emphasise the head, you'd think, and it does have a great head, but you got so many hops in there, it just dies off really quickly. You add oil to any, the head's fucked. So, only be from oil. But as the beer ages, I think, I don't know the full process of it, but the oils do convert and the head retention will get better with age, but you'll also lose aroma and flavour. But, I mean, that's what I've noticed with the NEIPA styles.
That makes sense, yeah, because you've got all those oils that are breaking down over time, becoming oxidised, and they're not causing so much an issue for your head retention then. Okay.
Exactly.
Cool. Yeah, cool. All right, are we ready to taste this?
Oh, I thought we already were.
No, you were meant to wait.
Oh, okay.
No, that's fine. Let's have a taste. Try and give ourselves a couple of seconds to see what we taste. Try and think about flavours in there, and then once we've talked about what flavours we're picking up, we'll talk about mouthfeel after that. We'll do that separately. So try and pick up all those different flavours and all those things in aroma are probably going to pop up, maybe a bit more when you taste it. So let's take a bit of a moment and just see what you can taste there.
Awesomeness.
So I'm going to say I know you said we're not talking about mouthfeel, but comparing this Caribbean fog to the mountain culture, this is not creamy mouthfeel at all. It's much drier. Whereas, even though I might be sensitive to it, I'm not picking it up here. There's no creaminess in this.
Well, I just switched to that, and it's very much creamier than that one, which wasn't creamy at all.
Yeah.
And both Dainton NEIPAs effectively. But yeah, very different, much more profound flavours in the loop to loop. Much more outgoing, much more fruity hop flavours, and not as much malt as I think is in the other one, which is interesting.
What are you guys picking up, Nathan? What's in what sort of flavours are you picking up in the beer you're drinking at the moment?
Like much like the aroma, I got a lot of mango and stone fruity kind of sweetness in there. It's particularly it's now gone, but yeah, I actually just snuck off and got another one so I can see what it's like again when it's colder. But yeah, definitely that stone fruit mango-y kind of flavours.
Adrian, what are you picking up?
Yeah, well, said before, I'm drinking the Loop de Loop as well. I'm just trying to sit on it. But it's definitely stone fruit. It's hop forward, as you said. It's quite hop forward. I actually, interestingly, just get a little bit of hop burn from this, to be honest. But it's mild, but there is a little bit of hop burn for me. But the flavors, very, very stone fruity, very tropical, and good flavors that completely match the aroma that you get when you open it up and put your nose in the glass.
So with this, I'm actually, and it's a pale ale as opposed to an IPA, I'm getting a lot more subtle flavors, which you'd probably expect with a pale than an IPA. It's more like probably a little bit of kiwi fruit, guava, sort of like a melony type citrus. So quite, almost like, that rock melon. It's sort of it's a sweet. It's just sweet but subtle as well, so it's not as intense as the IPA, but those sort of kiwi and melon type flavors is what I'm picking up in this. Quite subtle. Mike's shaking his head going, no, it shouldn't taste like that. What hops are in these? What hops is in this?
Finishing hop is a Zaka. It's more of a pineapple. Kind of been the flavour you don't like. Yeah, you're not getting that.
I'm not getting it. It does.
Kind of weird.
More subtle.
Wow.
Yeah.
But we also use El Dorado, right?
Earlier on, yeah.
Yeah.
The finishing the final dry hop is the Zaka, so that's the main aroma hop. But yeah, I think what's the date on that can?
Oh, it's very fresh. Hang on. I can't read even with my glasses on. Hang on.
I do that on purpose, otherwise you wouldn't buy it.
20.
Oh, don't say that.
Package date.
Don't give it away.
Package date. 9th month 21.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, but it's good.
It's not as fresh as the beer you guys are drinking, no.
No, but you're still getting lots of flavour and aroma out of that, which is really interesting, which is good, obviously. I'm just thankful it's not blue, which could have been awkward for the show. So we did a competition with the blog.
Which was denied the winner at least.
Sorry?
It'd be hard to deny that he's a winner. Yeah, blue beer.
If I go and put a couple of blue drops in it, I might win something.
Yeah, winner, yeah, sure. Look,
we did a competition to find the blue beer, so we spiked every 48th can with blue dye. And if you crack a can of fog and it's blue, you win a prize. With a T-shirt or some free beer or a case or whatever. So it could have been awkward if you'd popped that and it was blue. Tastes the same, but your mouth is blue for the next couple of hours, and next day there's a bit of blue in the other end as well. So it's good fun.
Oh, really?
Oh, great.
All right, Simon. What else should we be looking for with this style of beer?
Yeah, so let me just read through here. Very high hop flavour. Hops are because correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, but your West Coast and you might put a little bit more hops in your NEIPAs than your West Coast IPAs, but that's about right, isn't it? Yeah, but you don't want those big resiny, woody flavours that you get from your West Coast. Hops is the hero. Low to medium malt flavour. Like you're supposed to get a little bit of malt flavour in there. Should be a little bit of malt sweetness. And if you ever tried a hop tea, it doesn't taste the same as a beer. Like it's. Yeah, you've tried it. You need that hop, that little bit of hop sweetness, hop malt behind it. You need a little bit of malt sweetness behind it to make the hops sing. I've been playing I've been playing around with low alcohol beers and all this, and it's been a nightmare because the hops have just behaved completely differently, and it's a total different ball game.
Yeah.
Anyway, carrying on.
Yeah, so a lot happens during fermentation as well. So a lot changes during fermentation. So that's why a hop tea really doesn't taste anything like what you would get when you add it to beer 5 days before it's finished fermenting.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of magic goes on in the ferment in these beers to get those fruity flavours without those big. There's probably too much to go into, but that's a big part of it. Is in the fermentation when you add hops, all those sort of things is a big part of getting those fruity flavours, rather than those big West Coast woody flavours, aren't they?
Sure. Yeah. Damien, do you want to touch on the biotransformation?
Yeah, biotransformation.
If people want to hear about it, go.
The yeast and hops, I don't know a hell of a lot about it, but I know it's necessary for an NEIPA. I mean, yeah, I do. I know all that. No. I'm only a senior brewer. I don't need to know all that. Come on.
That's when you say the proprietary secret. Tell you.
No, there's an interaction between the yeast and the hops, which is necessary to extract those juicy flavours from the hops in an NEIPA. I mean, you can do it in a West Coast as well. If you say just before terminal, you can kind of get the same thing and not get the haziness. But it's definitely a necessary thing. So you want to separate seed. So what was that?
I was saying, it comes essentially from adding the hops earlier in the ferment. The yeast and the hops are going to work together, whereas on a West Coast you would add the hops at the end. Whereas with a hazy style, juicy style, you're adding the hops much earlier in the ferment. So there's a lot more work, a lot more things going on there, and it's really just sort of it's in the word biotransformation. It's actually changing the chemical makeup of the hops as it ferments to get you those juicy flavors and sort of dulls out some of those other piney resinous kind of flavors as well.
Yeah.
All right.
Generally,
to use too, doesn't it? That's
an important.
Right. We're coming up to the 1 hour mark, so I think we'll, just for the sake of giving everybody a life and making sure if anybody wants to watch this video, they don't have to take a chunk out of their life to watch it. We might sort of wrap it up a little bit. Simon, is there anything you wanted to add about in terms of the style guidelines with this beer?
No, we've talked about flavour. We talked about this real strong, fruity, these melon and stone fruit flavours. The only other thing was mouthful, which we've touched on already. Medium to medium full body and medium carbonation, which, as we've mentioned earlier, the carbonation's a lot lower than your average West Coast IPA or your pale ale. So we've already talked about that. We've already talked about why it's milkshake IPAs aren't hazy IPAs. They're in a separate category. So I think we have covered most of it. Anything else you wanted to mention, Nigel?
Oh, look, I don't think so. I mean, look, most people, I think we're all fairly familiar with the style. And, it's been around now for a while as it's sort of emerged as a style, formally recognised now as a style. And the interest. So I'd just like to, I guess, perhaps talk about a few generalised things. Like, so for instance, the term New England IPA, which we know was, it's basically a geographical appellation. So it's come out of a particular area, the same way like, Kolsch's come out of Clone, and these different areas where you get a beer which has come out of a particular geographical area. It's shot to fame or fortune or whatever with a name, and then often, like say champagne even, that then it gets protected and you can't use that style name anymore. So I'd be interested to know what are people's thoughts. Like, do you reckon that the term New England IPA will continue to be used, let's say in 10 or 15 years' time? Will we still be talking about a New England IPA, or will we be calling them hazy IPAs, or will we be calling them something else?
Just be hazy IPA.
Yeah, like Dankton.
Yeah, we wouldn't call it NEIPAs anymore, and we have avoided calling everything other than bubble and squeak because it is a true to style, original New England IPA style. Most of our other stuff is just called hazy or juicy. If you go to the US, pretty much anywhere, well, really anywhere in the US you go, you don't see it called a New England IPA. It's just an IPA.
Yeah. Any other final comments from anybody about the style, or any questions that anybody wanted to shoot off to any of the panel of experts? No. All right. No worries. Well, thanks for everybody for joining in today. Really appreciate it. Thanks to Simon for your input and getting involved in this. Hopefully we're looking at doing this on a regular basis. So each week we're going to punch out a new style. We started with this one because we thought it would be interesting and popular and create a bit of, excitement amongst all the cool kids. Next week we might be looking at a daggy beer style like alt beer or something like that, which for the old school,
let's do an alt beer.
Yeah, let's do an alt beer. I've got one in the fridge which I'm dying to have.
All right, let's look at alt beer next week.
Chris, what are you shaking your head for?
Oh,
Alt beer,
I'd
good.
like to learn more about alt beer. I'd like to learn.
Mate, that they've been around for 1,000 years, because they know how to make a good beer. None of these fly by night 2008 styles.
I'll just go back in time and get one.
There's one in the fridge, mate. There's one in the fridge. Go to Slow Lane and buy one. Anyway.
Slow Lane Brewing make one.
Slow Lane Brewing make one, and it's freaking awesome. So that sounds like we're doing alt.
True style, that one? Is that a good example?
Sounds like we're doing alt beer next week.
All right, we're on. That's what I've got in the fridge waiting for next week. I've got it there ready to go.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining in. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Damien. Thanks, Nathan, Adrian, Chris. Thanks, everybody, for joining in. Hope whoever's going to be watching this in the next 12 months, 12 years, will be able to be held accountable to see whether New England IPA is still around in 10 years' time.
I think everyone thought would have fizzled out by now, but it's continued on. We've had the black IPA, kind of, but NEIPA's, we're not allowed to call that. Hazy IPA is, I don't know, it's still around, and I think people are surprised by that, but obviously people enjoy it, and that's what's important.
That's what all the cool kids are doing, mate. All right.
Very good.
Cheers. Remember, life's too short to drink bad beers.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.